It is time to celebrate the GTeX member of the month. And the reason why we picked this particular member this month, it is because of something unusual that happened. You are familiar with the offer launch accelerator, which X was Explode, the intensive program that we run to help you create, launch, and sell out your signature offer. And what happened is that most of the time, the sales happen straight away within the first 7 days to 10 days. But here is someone that actually made the offer launch formula work month after they did it. And they managed to keep their conversation going, keep their relationship alive, and also convert those people that express interest, even if there was a gap of months in between. So without further ado, please welcome the GTeX member of the month, John Peters. John Peters is John. Can we give a massive whoop whoop to John, please? It was Donovan. There was that people was like, "Oh, Donovan is smiling. It might be done, but it's not Donovan this time. This time is John." So, John, first of all, congratulations. Well done.
Thank you. Thank you.
Speech. No. Okay.
I know.
No, exactly. What do I talk about? Now, first of all, let's get started. This is how the GTeX member of the month interview works. I'm going to start with a few questions, and then we are going to open up for the members. And so during this interview, I already want to thank every person here a question that you would like to ask to John. And remember, these are not questions like part of personal mentoring, like, hey, I'm doing this, what do you think I should do? No, we are doing that part. But question for John, like, how did you do this? How did it happen? What are your plans? These are great questions to ask in this kind of situation. So, John, first of all, why don't you start with introducing yourself, what you do to create the context around
Okay, yeah. So I've got a science and engineering background, and I've worked in industry and policy area. But I became, and I've always been passionate about inclusion and fairness. And so I've done a lot of reports and studies, etc. 10 years ago, started working with the university that I went to understand why women engineers didn't go into engineering jobs at the same rate as men. So I did a piece of work with them, stayed on, and was an architect for a new engineering program. And that led me to a couple of other things, but also really started me thinking, why are we still trying to get more women into science and engineering? Why are there so few Black engineers? There's quite a lot of Asian engineers in certain disciplines, but not in all. What is the problem, and why are we still fixing it with sticking plaster? So over the last 10 years, I've kind of come up with my own approach and wrote a big report. So got a bit of profile, which was designing inclusive engineering education. And then I've been trying to work out how can I change that? And I've been looking at online courses and trainings for about 4 years. So I've been that person going for webinars, I've paid for this, I paid for that. And then obviously got targeted by GTeX advertising. And somehow, anyway, I wanted to, so I sort of decided that I needed to change the conversation. And in November 2019, launched a program, got a few people, had live events planned, and then of course COVID happened. So I've in the meantime written a book, and I wanted to understand what I could do. So I created a free space to chat to engineering academics about the challenges, the problems. So we created a live lounge about a year ago, and people loved that space. And so I decided in Explode that I would focus on creating a membership club based around that. It was a bit tricky because I'd already got a sprint to pilot some of my workshops and curriculum on literally the following week. So it was a bit intense. And anyway, so that's what I did. Don't know how much detail you want, Simone.
No, it's actually getting to the now.
Yeah. So
and before we go and explore, how you use the quick launch formula, some of the challenges that you had when you were using it, because you mentioned that you're already at a sprint. Then there is the situation with academics, so that I'm going to get you to explain how it was. But before we go there, I want to ask you, because you're doing a work with like a lot of other GTeX members here that is needed in the world. There is a social mission, there is a social cause behind it, and you are championing it. what do you find to be the most fulfilling part of the work that you do?
I suppose part of it is I believe I've got an answer to what people can do differently. And so I get a buzz from seeing people try things and going, oh, that's really good. And then there's things that I've done, and I've done so many free things over the years. And I gave a workshop. I ran a conference 2 years ago, and I was interviewing somebody post Explode. And they said, oh, we just use that all the time. We've created our own Excel spreadsheet. We do a review every year. And that's like, seriously? So I've just kind of given stuff away, and they're using it, and I didn't know. And so I think I got a buzz from the fact that it makes a difference. And I think that's when I was 14 and I decided I'd done through the astronaut, the prime minister, and the brain surgeon, and then decided I just wanted to make a difference. And so I feel that I've moved myself into a space where I feel that I can make a difference and I can change the conversation that people are having around diversity. So my mission is about helping build an ecosystem in engineering where everybody can be their best, but they can also do their best engineering and design. So they're designing with people in mind. They're not designing in a bit of a bubble. And so I've, over the last year and through GTeX, I've really kind of nailed it down to having a kind of like a process. So and this has come with working with a number of different people in GTeX. So I've had a few accountability partners, and I know Ingrid, I would say, and I had some really amazing conversations around just because we connected one night when she was feeling really blue in this group and the mastermind. And so I would just send her a message, and so we had a call. So that was really helpful for her then, but then she's helped me. So my methodology is about diversity doesn't happen when people do it to you. It happens only through the actions that you can take. And so my kind of framework is that you've got to rationalize why it's important for you and for your engineering. And this is really particularly important for engineers because they just think they're problem solvers. They can solve everything. No one needs to tell them what to do. So they need to understand they don't see the relevance of diversity and inclusion to the work that they do as an engineering educator. So rationalize, why is it important? Then I've got my internalize, which is I need to then understand how I can effect change. So through internalize is to launch my engineering inclusion forum. And then I was a great call today with Sapphire. And so she said, you've got your mentoring program, your coaching program. And she said, it's got to be part of your internalize. So thank you, Sapphire, if you listen to watch this. And then, so that's now become part of that. So that's the internalize. And then I've got a health check tool, which is about strategizing. And then you get to the E. The E is about energize. And it's about energizing people around the whole diversity and inclusion agenda. But it's about putting empathy into engineering. And it's about really showing that we can make a difference by adding that emotion and empathy.
That's a great, well, first of all, commend you for great methodology, very clear, very needed the work that you do. And I've got one more question before we go into the launch part, which is, these are out of personal curiosity, running a business, we do million things during our day. Sometimes we remember what we do, sometimes we don't, sometimes we go a bit through the motion. But there are moments where we stop and we say, this is why I'm doing this. There are specific episodes. And I remember, for example, for me, it was years ago when I was into a school and I was really talking to this kid and helping him understand to complete like an exercise for an exam, because we were doing preparations. I was going in schools and doing preparations for exam for kids. And I remember that I spent a lot of time with this one kid that, it was a bit restless, he couldn't get it. And I spent all my time with that kid. And at the end, he said, I want to thank you, sir. I said, why? So because no one else ever put so much effort in me like you do, not even my parents. And I was like, oh, this is why I do what I do.
Yeah.
Right. So what is that for you? Well, that specific episode that happened to you that made you say, this is why I do what I do. This is why it's worth all the effort, all the time, all the ups and downs.
Oh gosh. Yeah, interesting question. Lots of different answers. There's one moment. So when I was on a secondment running the government Women in Science unit, and I'd been on this business trip with the government and the science minister to Moscow, and there was a guy on the trip who was the head of the higher education funding agency, and he came in to see me just as a kind of for a chat and a coffee, but he had another purpose. And he said to me, to Jan, he said, this Women in Science thing, it's all a bit of a laugh, isn't it? It's not really serious, is it? And it was a kind of like, what do you mean? What do you mean? And it was also while I was, yeah. So I just like, I said, it's like, and I just told him things that I didn't even know that I knew. And I was like, it's like when someone just taps you like this. And this is based on experience of working in science, like tick, 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 tick. And you think, I've got this bruise, oh, my arm's sore, tap, 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 tap. And then one day somebody taps the arm right on the bruise and you go explode at them. And it was a completely irrational response to such a minor comment. And that was I think, a moment where I really realized that people just didn't understand. This is like 20 years ago. And now I think people really understand a lot more about the challenges that people face about being a minority, about being a person of color that's in a largely white society where everything is harder. So they say that was one of my moments, but I do a lot of science outreach as well. So I'm really super passionate about doing hands-on activities with kids. So running my business allows me to indulge, and I have to keep putting a stop on myself from doing that. But okay,
but I got to actually go back to what actually makes me some money. But I love this.
Yeah,
I get it. Well, thank you for sharing, and I think it gives us an insight on what really moves us, what's really important for us, and the reason why we do what we do, not just what we do. So I want to now switch back. I've got two more questions, and then I'm going to open it up to everyone else. So make sure you start loading up your questions for Jan in the chat, and I want to see everyone putting in a question. And the launch, the quick launch formula happened in an unusual way. It's particularly in your scenario, because created the offer, created the methodology, and then you were already in the middle of another promotional sprint that you were doing. And then there was a situation with academia and COVID. So can you explain a bit more the background, what created the delay in your launch, and then how you dealt with it?
So in higher education, and the people that I communicate with have been in complete survival mode for 18 months and totally overwhelmed with delivering quality of education, but having to do it in completely different ways. And so I started this community and discovered there was a passion and interest and a lot of uncertainty, but that because of the Black Lives Matter, that the academics in particular as well were feeling really threatened and challenged and terrified because they didn't know how to respond. And suddenly their students were incredibly articulate and vocal about pulling the academics up. So there's a huge sense of fear in the community. So I think I went into the accelerator with one idea to launch, which was my overarching product, and I kind of went through a couple of iterations in the people I was partnered with. So I created everything, and I did all the follow-up calls. I created the first video, and then something it wouldn't upload, and I had a problem. And so I was also trying to run my sprint and 1 hour at a time each lunchtime. Anyway, I got a couple of calls through that week as I was trying to follow the process. And I also had the feedback I would get from my 6 people on my sprint, my pilot. But then other people saying, oh yeah, I can have a call with you in July. And someone said June. And then somebody then came out and said, I was continuing to
this was,
out.
for context, this was April when we
This is April, yeah, last week in April. And then I continued to sort of try and get calls with different people, and I was in a conference call, and I was started in the chat with somebody, and this was at middle of June, maybe end of June. She was the head of department at university, and she said, "Oh, that's really interesting. Let's set a call up." So we put the call in the calendar for the 12th of September. so most academics had August off. So I continued with the call. But what was interesting is my admin assistant has not got a science background at all. But what I was able to do, and this really surprised me, was one of the feedback calls that she had then set up, because the guy she was copied on the email to him. That was again set up for like the first week in September, back in June. And she did the call with him and used the script. And the first thing he said to her, because we've been chasing this guy for a contract, and we were supposed to do a staff training day for him 2 years ago. First thing he said was, "I haven't got any money." So she said, "That's not a problem. We're just looking for feedback." And it was that whole concept of the feedback call. We just know that you know the work we do, you know our passion, we're interested in doing something to support the community. What do you think? And she had a call with him, and he said, "Oh, it's really interesting. I need to go and talk to somebody to see if I've got some money." And she got a phone call the next day, and he said, "I can probably have 2, maybe 3 places." And then he said that he could have 4, but then he came back and they could only find 2 people who could join it before Christmas. So I've now got an invoice being in the system to be paid. So it took, that was 3 years of me chasing, but without that call and that approach, the feedback call, I would say, is the absolute answer. And it doesn't have to be you that does it. And actually, I think my assistant doing it, ironically, is even more powerful. She was saying things to him about how amazing it's going to be that I would never in a million years say.
And that there is so many lessons from what you shared right now. Like, one is the importance of, building relationships, and no at one point doesn't mean no forever. The second thing is that people will always find money for what they value and what's important for them, people, organizations. And, sometimes I can go, if you talk to a prospect or a potential client, they're going to the defensive. So I have no money. You keep doing your thing, whether it's your sales format or the feedback call in this case. I'm looking for feedback. I just want to give you a few ideas. And I actually had a sales call, was a couple of days ago. And it started with, I would love to, I like what you do, but I have no money. Like, okay, well, let me show you how we can help you. At the end of the call, then she found the money. And because people will always find money for what's important for them. And our role is to give them the option, right? That's what we can do. Give them the option. And if we come from the mindset, let me just give them an option, then they can decide. If they don't have it, they don't buy. If they have it, but they don't want to buy, they don't buy. But sometimes either they will find it or they will buy it. So the last question I have for you is around, and then I'm going to go through the questions. So at the moment, I can only see one. So everyone else, questions in for Jan. The last question that I have is around the length of the process, and what made you just not, just lose interest, or saying, no, I'm not going to be bothered to follow up with you, because now it's like 7 months down the line and God knows what's going to happen in the next 6 months. Is there something particular in your attitude or the way you run your business, or what was that for you?
Well, that's really interesting for several reasons. So I'd say that my follow-up is like I'm just the world's worst. And I know that a lot of people, and I'm sure I've heard you say that the money is in the follow-up. And I've still got like 3 people that I should be following up from. Like, I did a corporate workshop day just before COVID for a big corporate finance tech team. Have I followed it up yet? And he's there on my every week.
Send me their emails. I'll follow up for you.
Yeah.
Then we split the invoice.
So why? And it's really interesting. Why have I persisted and actually been doing it this time? And it's like, I suppose I've invested a lot of time, money, and I've really shaped it. But I know that there's a need, and I do go through Oh my God, I still don't know the exact detail of everything that I'm going to do each month, although I've got my framework.
Yeah.
So it's, and I think someone said that to me, I was another coach from a community I'm in, said that you're depriving people of your knowledge and your vision of view. And I've really come to see in the last 2 years, and I've kind of seen it before, but I'm always like 2 years ahead of the curve. And it's that I can't be that special. I can't be that special. And like, surely everybody else is doing that. And then I just think, why is nobody else doing this? And I'm beginning to hear people say these things, other things similar. I'm like, oh, I need to move on as well. So I just think, I just keep innovating, and I'm sat in my little office at the end of my garden for 2 years. But it's and now I've got these 3 people. I am going through that dip of down. So I was really disappointed there was no live Q&A today, because it's like I've got these other 12 organizations on my list, and I messaged everybody again on Monday with a, hey, this is really exciting, time's running out, we're starting. And then the first thing that happened is somebody said, can you unsubscribe me, please?
Thanks.
Like, prick my bubble. So
yeah.
No, but it is that I think now people have got 3, like I've actually literally got 3 lots of money, and it's like there must be, because when I did the feedback calls, I know that, but 3 of the heads of departments that were really super interested are on leave for 2 weeks.
Mm-hmm.
So actually, and what I agreed with Sophia this afternoon is that actually, rather than do like last Saturday's course, rather than do my whatever we did on Saturday,
virtual event
challenge, the virtual event, rather than do that before Christmas, what I will do is I'm going to do a Deans and Diversity in December roundtable and invite all my deans that I know to just talk around the challenges around diversity. And I'm going to do it the week before Christmas, and I'm going to run my challenge in January, February.
Great timing, great framework. It works in every situation. So I want to now check, we got 2 questions for the moment. One is from Raha. Raha, can you unmute yourself and ask the question that you wrote down to Jan?
Hi, well done, Jan. I wanted to ask you, you mentioned that you had a live lounge, and I wanted to ask you, where did you host it and how did you put the information out?
It's really difficult, Raha, really tricky.
Come on, give it to me. I bet it's
so we just do it on Zoom.
Oh, okay.
We do it on Zoom. We have a Jamboard, and it's called it's a facilitation tool technique called a lean cafe. So it's not World Cafe, it's a lean cafe structure. And so I started by marketing it. I did it to my mailing list, and I've not got a massive community, but it's 40 people-ish who don't all come at once, but it includes people like a couple of vice chancellors, but I have known them quite a long time. And so the methodology for it is about, there is no set agenda. So it's everybody comes, they check in the chat. We then have Jamboard 1, where it's just what's top of your mind, what have you read that's interesting you want to share, what's a challenge that you're facing, what is a diversity, equity, inclusion thing you want to talk about. So 5 minutes, anyone posts things up, then everybody stops and they vote, and I just then drag a couple of the most commonly voted items. We then spend 10 to 15 minutes. If there's 2 equal and there's a lot of people, we go into breakouts and we feedback, and they keep notes on the Jamboard. So the Jamboards stay live for people to revisit. And then we stop after 10 minutes if we're all in one room, and it's pause, stop. It's either continue or stop, or change topic. And everybody seems to like it. It's flexible, it's democratic, and it's interesting, and nobody ever knows what's going to be talked about. And then it's Jamboard, it's a Google product, it's free, and you get 20 slides that you can scoot along the side. You just set them up in advance with topics, and you can stick post-it notes on. It's really creative and flexible. Happy to, if anyone wants to have a look one day, is share it in one of the Q&A sessions Simone?
That would be great. I was actually already like opening because I don't have enough tabs open in front of me, but I open another tab with the Jamboard so then I can check it out. And yes, definitely would love to have a Q&A session.
Happy to. And then Fiona, are they people like me? There's no one like me. So, but no, seriously, no, the people that tend to come are people who are either engineering tutors. Some of them are the education director at a university. Some of them are people I've met in rooms, at conferences, etc. over the years, and some it's people who tell people. So it's a mixture of people, and then we just hold it on. We block off. It's the second Tuesday every month at 12:30, and it's like bring your lunch, sit in front of your camera, and have a chat and connect. And it's really
that's an incredible example of how you build. Now there is the course that we have on creating the community. The number one principle is create your community first, and the community will build your business.
Yeah,
that's what Jan is doing. She's serving her community. She's facilitating, creating a platform where people can talk, can communicate, can interact, can share ideas. And then some people turn into clients, some people turn into connections, some people, they give her interesting ideas, feedback on what she does. So that becomes serve your community, and the community will build your business.
And so the first piece of work that I got from it was in about March, April, and Swansea University asked a question in one of the rooms, and she said, I need to talk to you. So then I had a call with them, and then I sold them my health check tool, but just the introductory piece. And so it becomes a sort of another soft sell because people buy from people they know.
Right. And do you charge for that? You know, you said it's on I can't remember which Tuesday of every month.
Yeah, no, it's free.
Oh, okay, all right.
And I'm a Clifton strengths coach, and I run a free strengths jam on a Wednesday afternoon. What's interesting though is that last month and this month, and I don't know if that's my newsletter's not gone out, but it's really, or whether it's just academia October, I'm really quiet, but you know, people will come back, I'm sure.
Mm-hmm. And you know, like in every market, you have like a busier time and quieter time and busier time. There is always a cyclical event that happen. But what you're doing is creating conversation, and that's the message I want everyone to get about what she's doing, is that she's creating a place where people can have conversations. And because she's the main leader and facilitator, then she becomes a trusted person that they can recommend. So think about how can I apply this to my business model? Now, what topic of conversation can I facilitate? And it doesn't have to be a commitment like John has every single month in a fixed time. But you can start with one. Let me create one thing to give the space for these conversations. So thank you, Ra. I now need to move to the next question. The next question is from Caroline. Caroline, can you please unmute yourself and ask your question to Jan?
Yeah, I know what you said about you have these dips. And I just wondered, okay, so how do you deal with the dip to then bring yourself back up and keep going?
I suppose I'm I've got one of those brains that is always thinking ahead, and I don't see barriers. So as I'm a strengths coach, my number one strength is something called strategic, which is whenever I'm looking in anything in front of me, I'm continually looking and taking new information and integrating it and adapting and moving and shifting my position, which annoys the hell out of people I work with usually, and my family and my partner and my kids. But it's so I never, if something doesn't go right, yes, okay, I might feel a bit down or frustrated, but I'm always on to the next thing. So I don't linger, and I don't have a technique for doing anything. And if I was the sort of person who pondered over things, I might then come up with a strategy to help do that. Sort of ask yourself the question. So if you are the sort of person who ponders, my strategy for you would be to say, okay, so what could you do about it? And I don't know if you've read The Coaching Habit by Michael Bungay-Stanier, and one of these got 7 questions. And one of the questions is start your question with what. So what is the thing? What could you do about that? And then the lazy question is it's the or question, and what else? So if you ask yourself, and what else, 3 or 4 times after you've come up with one answer, then all of a sudden you've got 4 options. So that is a way, if you aren't wired like I am, which is what can I do, what can I do, da, 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 which is a downside. It's a strength, but it's also, you know, an Achilles heel, because it's like juggle, you know, oh, is the browser open, what's in that, oh, there's another one. So then it's that ultimately, and then if you do that, what would happen then? And you can then start, if you do 4 answers for that one and 4 for that, suddenly you've got 16 options, and something's going to be good.
At least one thing is gonna work.
Yeah.
All right, thank
Brilliant,
you.
thank you.
Thank you, Caroline, for the question, and thank you, Jan, for the brilliant answer. 2 more questions, and then we wrap up this interview. So one is from Fiona. Fiona, the second question that you wrote down, that's quite interesting. Can you please unmute yourself and ask the question?
Yeah. So yeah, Jan, great interview. Love you, love your energy, you're a natural communicator, you're fantastic. So you said that you are not very good at following up. So have you got a system now sorted for logging everyone, what they're interested in, questions and what they say? Because I'm rubbish at that, I have to say, and I know I've got to get better.
Yeah, okay, so I've got multiple systems. I love systems, but then I love creating new ones. So
I love systems until I'm bored, and then I create a new system.
So I've got Asana. I can never find anything in it. I've got HubSpot. I never get around to going and looking in it. But what we do have is that we always go back to me and my assistant. We always go back to our good old faithful Google Sheet, because Excel is brilliant and I love it. But sometimes, like yesterday, my SharePoint decides that I don't need it on my computer anymore and it unconnects it. And then we're working on documents, and all that she can do is create a copy every time she wants to edit the same document. So you end up with spawned copies of Excel sheets. Google Sheets, love it and hate it, is there and people can access it and it's always there. And so we have our catalytic planning sheet, and we have our prospects sheet, and it really is our old faithful. Who are we talking to? Who have we got as prospects? Who have we gotten? Who are we sending proposals to? And I know it's all in my free agent accounting package. I send a quote out. I've sent this out. And I keep my invoices in there. And I know I'm duplicating it, but I know that I tick off back in there and I know that my colleague can always go and look at it and see who we're talking about. So we've got all our prospects, we've got the people that come to our live lounge, but now we've got 2 membership clubs. We've now got 2 like membership spreadsheets on them, and one of them is people that's been to the live lounge and when they're being emailed, and then when they're buying things, they get ticked off. And in another tab, we've got the people who've paid, who then are creating the Microsoft form. So there is a process behind it. And what I am doing, I'm building a master Excel sheet rather than Google, just because I don't know why, because it could be different. So I'm creating a master Excel sheet which will pull in the sheets from my 2 members of my clubs and the marketing sheet, so that I'm going to then put another sheet onto it as well, so that all my social media and marketing with all the themes for the clubs each month will go into that.
So if you know how to use Excel.
I only started creating master sheets last week, but for another project. It's really simple.
You know what? What will be interesting is like one of the projects that we want to put more into place is members training in some things that they know how to do or they can do, and then create like impromptu trainings within that. And I will be interested to learn more about master.
I wouldn't recommend it.
No,
really. I don't know that. I think it's a messy way, and I'm sure there's a better system.
There is a better way. Okay, so we'll not do the training, because every time I need something for an Excel spreadsheet, I ask my wife. It's like, baby, I need to do a sum. Can you help me out, please? That's how bad I am. Right, Fiona, thank you for the question. And now we are going to get the final one, which is actually acts as a wrap-up question, which is the one from Genevieve. Genevieve, I think that would be perfect for you as a final question. So over to you, and please go ahead.
Hi, Jan. Hi. I just wanted to know where I find out about you and what you do. Where would I really go and find out about you?
Well, there's LinkedIn, obviously, with my super polished profile builder profile, but I do need to work on it. Michelle told me off, actually. So catalytic.co.uk is the business website, but I'm having it reworked at the moment, which is Catalytic's got a K at each end. So, because it's like, we go in and make things happen. And then I've got a drjanpeters.com website. But I've got to say, I'm a bit slack about, I'm not very good at the whole self-promotion thing. And yeah, I believe there's a Wikipedia page somewhere.
A Wikipedia page?
Yeah.
Oh, so the Dr. Jan
Peters.
Jan Peters, you think that would be my first stop?
Yeah.
Okay, lovely.
And what we'll do as soon as we finish the interview, Jan, if you can also put your contact details in the chat.
Yeah, sure.
Like website, and because it has been thank you, Genevieve, for the question, and it has been a really insightful interview, because definitely it has been what happened to you has been a first in the history of the Offer Launch Accelerator, Explode. And I was curious around how you made it work, because some people, they totally forget to follow up after so many months, or generally is more like a quicker approach. But in this time there was a twist, and I was curious to understand how you dealt with it, how you made it work, understand more about your industry and your approach, and of course getting to know you better. I think that we ticked all the boxes in
But I think that really that with the monthly program of the sort of implementation days, it's very easy to jump from one to another and not think and then leave the one that you've done behind. But actually, it's finding the one that's right for you and keeping going with it. Because just because it doesn't work in the first couple of weeks, or you've not managed to do something, and I remember you saying, if you've got to follow the full process and it's the magic's on the 7th day. Okay, so me, it's the 7th month. But it is about persistence. And just because it might not be the right time, it might not be the right, but it doesn't mean your ideas are flawed. But it's about refining it as well. And sometimes things just need a bit of time to ferment. And it's the connections with and I've had wise words from Raha and Rushi as well over the months and groups, and it is that other people in groups can give you nuggets. I think sometimes people can send you off on a bit of a wild goose chase and go, but then you have to remember that we're all learning at the same time, and some people don't necessarily have are in a completely different industry. So you just got to filter and choose the nuggets.
Absolutely, exactly. Like any type of feedback that you get is always about, what does it sit with me? Is it something that feels right to me? Is it something that can be applicable? And then the good thing is that we have different ideas, and now there is one thing that might sit well that we've not thought about, and that's the other thing. And there are others that we say, no, not right now, maybe another time. So Jan, thank you very much. You're an absolute star. Can we give all a round of whoops to Jan, please? Congratulations, well done. GTeX Member of the Month, October 2021. Now, James, you can stop the recording, please. And before we go into the next activity, which is going to be the